But right now, Ursula, what you got for us?
Well, this is a really depressing topic, but it is one that we need to tackle. And you mentioned on Friday, G, that we decided we were not going to go deep dive into a story that was happening on Friday, and that involved the mass shooting at a FedEx facility.
Right.
But we have to talk about this because it was another weekend of mass shootings across the country. 3 people were killed in a shooting near Austin, Texas. And then in Kenosha, Wisconsin, 3 men were killed. 3 others were injured after a shooting at a college bar. Just since the beginning of this year, there have been nearly 150 mass shootings across the country.
Kenosha, Columbus, Ohio, Detroit twice, Indianapolis, Pensacola, Washington, D.C. twice, Baltimore twice, Chicago 4 times, Wichita, Seattle, Memphis twice, Koshkonong, Missouri.
Okay, you
Waterbury, Connecticut,
kind of get the point. This is going to go on for a while. And it's not to sound callous, but at some point I can't even keep track of where they're all happening. And I actually had to look up. We had to look up where the one in Seattle happened, and that was in the Central District recently. And something needs to be done, but what is that? It just seems like we keep talking about it each and every single time, and yet very little changes. And right now, it seems like whether it's copycat or it's become kind of this contagion effect, which actually there is some research that shows that each new shooting is likely to spark another one. And we are in a very bad cycle right now.
Very bad cycle. And no matter where you side with your side when it comes to gun reform, it is a very bad cycle, and one in which I don't believe that we can get this toothpaste back into the tube. Over the weekend, as we kept hearing about this, we like I said, you and I, we decided not to talk about it on Friday. I was like, hey, Ursula, it's Friday. You know what I mean? They'll talk about it in the newscast. We can talk about other things. And then it just kind of continued to happen. The one similarities that I think that most of us have in this is there's probably a possibility that if and when you did talk about it this past weekend, you might have made a mistake and mixed it up. Like, wait, which one? Wait, is this in Texas? Oh, wait, no, is this in Wisconsin? Because it's happening so rapid, so much so that we don't even stop anymore. Like it's, hey, did you hear about what happened in Austin, Texas? Oh, yeah, that's crazy. Anyways, so what's for dinner? As before, if we go back to our past, right, you go back to, let's say, Columbine. And Ursula, you probably were doing news when Columbine happened. And you guys remember the nation stopped during those times and like, whoa, and discussed it. And
we could talk about the names of the victims. We could talk about, unfortunately,
right?
the people involved, knew all the details, what was learned, what they did, but
we talked about it all. Now it's become a blip on the screen, and it's scary. And as far as, well, they got to do something about this, you know what? I'm going to go back again with history. History has shown me, no, nothing's going to be done. Because after Sandy Hook, when those little kids were killed in that situation and nothing was done, that taught me, Ursula, that showed me that no, nothing's going to happen by this. So the only thing that we can do going forward is to be safe. And just pray. There is no. I know that sounds crazy because it's like,
okay,
oh well,
gee, I'm gonna.
You're gonna argue against me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna come up with a couple of things. So one thing, I think you were absolutely right. Sandy Hook should have been the reason to do something as simple as universal background check. I mean, what is it? What one thing can you do as a nation and say, okay, we agree to this? And I still don't understand how universal background checks, which need to be passed by Congress, how that is going to impact anyone who is is worried about their gun rights, the people who have guns and who use them lawfully and carefully, and and get them by legal means. Why it should worry anyone like that? I still don't understand And please text us at 98973 what it is that is. I know there's always that argument about, well, once you start, it's going to just keep going. And you're just going to keep going, and then we're going to lose our guns, our rights to guns. That hasn't happened. And then the other argument that keeps being brought up is, well, none of these changes would have helped in any of these situations. One change that is happening, and you know that President Biden recently announced a whole bunch of executive orders that are aimed at reducing gun-related violence. And some people said, well, it wasn't enough. He's calling on Congress to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Again, that's one of those things where why is it that people who are legal gun owners are worried about a ban on assault? What does a civilian need an assault weapon for? It always seems to get into the hands of these young teenagers who are troubled. And yes, we need to address mental health. Mental health is one of the most common things in here. You know, with each one, you have to be mentally ill or somehow, just not thinking right if you are going to kill a bunch of people, period.
Ursula, real quick on the mental health.
Yeah.
The gunman in the FedEx shooting legally bought 2 semi-automatic rifles months after a gun was seized from him over his mental state. Let me repeat that again. Bought 2 semi-automatic rifles months after a gun was already seized from him over his mental state. Let me just take one second here.
Yeah.
There are people that are listening now. I own guns, by the way. I just want to be clear. I own guns.
Yeah, you are not anti-gun.
I am not anti-gun. And so there are people that are listening right now. You own guns. Here's my question to you. Have you ever had guns taken away from you because of your mental state? The answer is probably no. Most people don't. And in this case, this man had weapons taken away, and he was still able to buy.
And that's where, what is that loophole? So the FBI had enough concerns, and they questioned him. Okay, so he's 19 years old. I don't even want to use his name, but he's 19 years old. His own mother called authorities. She did the right thing. She claimed he might commit suicide by cop. A gun was seized at his home, and yet he was still able to legally purchase these weapons. How does that happen?
I don't know. I don't know, Ursula, but I just want to say that you're going to get mad at me with this conversation. And here's why you're going to get mad at me. Because I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted with it's the same thing every time. Like, it happens. We discuss and we have these debates about gun reform. Nothing happens with it. It's the same argument. It's the same people that are arguing for and against. And then it happens again. And then there's thoughts and prayers. And then there's the argument.
Hear the thoughts and prayers. Please don't use that.
So Ursula, I'm going to ask you, because you said you had some thoughts, and the only thoughts and ideas that you came with were actual, like, things to do with gun reform.
Yeah,
and I'm saying to
and
you,
mental health. But here's where I'm going to say, because I know you're saying, I'm just ready. I give up.
I do.
Basically, you're saying there's nothing that can be done.
Nope.
And I'm saying that we have been chipping away, and there needs to be. Do you remember that letter that we got last week from someone who said, "Yeah, people hate it when you talk about racism, because but it's almost like having to hear it and present it in a way that's not threatening. No one's trying to take anything away from you who are legally owning these things. But what can be done to keep those firearms from getting into the wrong hands? And yes, it doesn't mean you only focus on the guns. Guns aren't the ones that, it's people. Yes, so you have to address the issues with the people. But in this case, with this 19-year-old and the mom, and there was a tool. So what we're learning now, and I'm just reading this now in the last few seconds, apparently this 19-year-old never appeared before a judge for a hearing under Indiana's red flag law. So the prosecutor there is saying that authorities believe they had done what they needed to by seizing the shotgun that he had in March of last year.
Right.
So they responded to his home after his mother called police to say her son might commit suicide by cop. And the prosecutor says if they had invoked the red flag law and lost, they would have had to return the gun to him, and that's not something they were willing to do.
Right.
So it's like, there needs to be multiple layers where someone like this doesn't get his hands on a gun again.
Sure. You're right. Do you remember, I just want to talk about the always willingness for like the country that wants to go and just buy guns. Again, let me repeat. I'm a gun owner, okay? So I don't want anybody to think that I'm against people having guns. But if you remember, we had a colleague when COVID first broke out last year, and we were sitting there, and one of our colleagues came and said, yeah, I'm thinking about going to buy a gun too. Wait, what? It's a public health crisis, right? But for some reason, the energy, like people started to really get out here and go out here and buy guns, buy more guns. I have a buddy of mine who already has a bunch of guns.
Yeah, every time you talk about gun reform, people go out and run and get more guns.
During COVID, he went out and bought way more. And I asked him, I said, what do you need all of those guns for? Oh, well, just in case. Just in case what? Oh, to protect your family? All of your family has to come in your house. You got all the guns in your house. And then the next part of this, Ursula, as we continue to talk about this, is it continues to be repetitive. And so I'm sorry if I seem a little bit negative when it comes to this, but I just don't feel like it's going to happen. And by the way, there are states right now, the state of Texas, that are trying to make it possible for people to have handguns with no permit.
And what's the reason for that? Because they're not accessible in Texas?
I don't know. Maybe somebody listening right now can help me understand why do that. And so if I can sit here and say I'm exhausted and concede, probably which isn't good, right? Like that's the worst thing you can do is not want to put up a fight anymore. But I'm just saying when is it going to be enough is going to be enough. That's my question. So if it wasn't enough for Sandy Hook.
The Sandy Hook thing is a good argument, but I would continue to say we need to chip away and keep working as a country and not look at it as, gun rights advocates against gun safety advocates. It's like we should all agree that we don't want those things to get into the hands of the wrong people. So what is it? What are the basic things that we can agree on? Most of the country agrees already, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat, on the idea of universal background checks.
Right.
I mean, you need or gun licensing laws, again, which implies universal background check. But you need that. I mean, just as if you drive a car, you need to have a license and a vehicle registration. Why shouldn't that be true if you own a firearm? I don't get it. You could argue that, it's not going to help in any of these cases, but little things that you can chip away, and I'm not talking about chipping away your freedoms. I'm talking about chipping away one of the biggest problems too is people killing themselves with these guns. Those guns getting in the wrong hands.
That definitely is a huge issue. Hey, Ursula. Again, sometimes I go off the road. I promise you, I'll come back. Johnson & Johnson, the company that's distributing the vaccines. What's going on? What's going on with them right now? Why is Johnson & Johnson on pause from giving out vaccines right now?
Because
what's the reason?
There were at least 6 cases where people got these blood clots that were not similar to other kinds of blood clot issues that either killed or seriously injured them. And they're trying to see if there's a correlation between the vaccine and these blood clots. You know where I'm going, right? Mm-hmm.
6, Ursula. 6. 6 out of 6 million that were given out, they paused it. They stopped it. Hold up. Ladies and gentlemen, Johnson & Johnson, there's a 1 in a million chance that you can receive this blood clot, which is serious. I'm not saying it's not serious. But
point.
as soon as that happened, there was an immediate pause. Heather Bosch was talking about it. It was in the news. It was front page. It was everywhere. There's a hole. As a matter of fact, Johnson & Johnson is still on a pause right now. Dr. Fauci said that there's probably going to be new information. We'll find out more on Friday. But lo and behold, Sandy Hook happens. All of these mass shootings happens. Nothing. This is why I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted because it feels like, I don't know what it feels like.
It feels like we talk about it over and over again, and then you start becoming numb to it. And the fact that we can't even distinguish, wait, where did that happen? This morning I was referring to one of the mass shootings, and I was referring to the wrong one. And that's just awful, because I was thinking these are people's lives. Any one of those lives would be enough to devastate an entire family and community, and we can't even keep them straight. So, I hear that you're exhausted, but you can't give up the fight. You cannot continue to ask and search, what is it? And I think the answer always starts with us individually. I heard someone, and I'll mention it again, but someone who said, you know what? I know that I suffer from depression and anxiety, and there are times when I go to a deep, dark place. And for that reason, I will not buy a gun. That's a start.
Ursula, I don't know how you do it, but you do it. You got me all riled up with this topic. I give up the fight.
As you should be riled up, but you can't give up the fight. Just like you can't with COVID. You can't say, I'm exhausted, I'm done. No, got to keep fighting.